Welcome back to La La Land on LA Talk Live. I'm Brett Chapin, that's Dorothy Dillingham Blue, and we are here with artist Moye Thompson. Hi, Moye.
Hi. I would have been very happy just sitting here listening to the two of you talk for the rest of the hour. You are charming.
Why, thank you.
But
we make a good team.
I mean, I already knew you
We
were
do.
charming because I know Dorothy from another environment. But Brett, I had no idea.
Who knew how charming I was?
You look charming.
Oh, well, thanks. But, you know, the idea of the show is our amazing, amazing, talented guests. And
Absolutely.
as much as we want to talk about ourselves the whole show, our guests are what's important. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I'm actually flattered to be here. I don't have too many opportunities to talk about my work because I actually, unlike you actors out on the stage, I tend to hide in my studio. And
Right.
I don't really get on Facebook. I don't Twitter. I just work very quietly with my clay, with my twigs, with my chicken wire. And when anybody shows interest, I'm delighted.
Excellent.
Your stuff is very cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Now, tell us about kind of your journey to becoming an artist, a visual artist like
How
this.
much time do you have?
Okay, no. The
Well-
the short-term version.
Yeah, the short version is that when I was in third grade,
Uh-huh.
I was on a field trip. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. And I have to say, I'm actually the 13th generation of Georgia and Alabama farm families.
Wow.
So I think I have this long, deep connection to the earth.
Oh, yeah.
to clay, to mud. And I've always felt this connection to it. I remember finding clay in a creek near our house when I was teeny tiny. And I just thought, oh, clay, it's clay. When I was in third grade, living in Atlanta, I went on a field trip with my school, and somehow I got lost, and I accidentally wandered into this ceramic studio at this college, and there was a woman sitting there, and she turned this ball of clay into this beautiful big bowl. And for me, it was like magic. I'd never seen anything like it, and from that point on, really, I wanted to do it. So I sort of begged my parents, for one of these little toy pottery wheels,
Yeah.
which I set up in my basement, and it was a piece of garbage, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I saw that it was possible. And actually, when I was in high school, I took one class, loved it, and then I was serious about school. I went to Harvard, studied serious things, got out, was living in New York, writing for a magazine, and a boyfriend who always heard me talking about this pottery class in 10th grade said, I'm giving you a pottery class for your birthday. I was 22, I think, and from that point on, it was, I had a day job at a magazine, at Consumer Reports, where I was a writer,
Yeah.
making a good salary, but my real love and my life from that point on was going to the studio in New York, where I would be the first one there every morning on Saturday and the last one they kicked out at night, and within a couple of years I was teaching. And just has become a bigger and bigger part of my life. I moved here 16 years ago. My husband sort of persuaded me to come by telling me I could set up a pottery wheel on the deck outside and leave it outside from April until October when the first rains came. And he sold me. I moved here. Now I have a home studio with 2 kilns, a wheel, a slab roller, and that and my family are my life right now.
Was the boyfriend that gave you the pottery class the husband?
No. He was not the husband, but he was a pivotal figure in my life, so I always give him credit for that. But my husband, as Dorothy mentioned, is an architect, so he forever inspires me, and we do have a modern house. It's actually a 50s bungalow, wonderful, in San Monica Canyon, that he found, a treasure, a little weary box of a house that was in foreclosure in the early 90s. He had the wisdom to buy it because we could never buy anything in our neighborhood now. And we did an addition after our first child, Claire, who's the actor who's done shows at Theater Palisades with Dorothy. After Claire was born 14 years ago, we did an addition. And
Oh my God, she's 14.
She's 14, and and my husband, it's a warm modern house. So
Yeah.
you're right. It's funny because my husband hates sharp edges. He sees so much modern furniture. And he says, "How can they have those sharp edges? It needs to. You don't want to run into it and scrape your knee." So it's funny. And my pottery, it is fragile, and surprisingly few things have actually been broken by my dog or my kids. But I realized as you were talking that I've actually managed to introduce yet another more fragile material, which is twigs. I go to Rustic Canyon Park or to Will Rogers State Park on hikes, and I look for pigs and for pigs. I look for pigs. I have trouble finding pigs. I look for twigs and pebbles. And I incorporate, I don't know if anybody can see it, but I use, I have a bottle and I put a twig in the top, and then in that twig I'm going to put a little house. So it's a tree house.
See, this is going to be the house.
So I work with chicken wire, make a little smoke coming out of the chimney, and the twigs broke in the car on the way here. Although I hired my son Teddy to carry things for me, and he did his best. But even so, things broke. That's the life of a potter.
You're right.
That's what sons are for.
And actually, he could not be a better son. He did his best. The twig was too high, obviously. It banged the top of the car.
Oh, my. You just got to get a taller car. That's what it is.
Actually, yeah, I'll make a little money, then I'll buy a taller car.
There you go. Get a Twigmobile.
So should I tell you a little bit about the show?
Yes, absolutely. Tell us about the show that you're doing right now.
Well, just a little background. I did start as really just a functional potter. I love. I love making bowls. That was sort of what I would do. I just make bowl after bowl after bowl.
I have one of your bowls.
Yes, you do have one of my bowls. I think a purple bowl, right? To go with your school.
Northwestern,
there
yes.
you go. And in fact, I brought a purple piece here just for you, Dorothy, and I'm going to give it to you at the end of the show. And I'm sorry, Brett, I don't know what color is your school, but you take a piece too.
That's okay, next time.
But I used to make functional pieces. I love just very clean. People think they hear my name Moye and they think I'm Japanese. I'm not Japanese. I would love to claim some of that aesthetic as my own, but instead I've adopted it. But I love clean lines, nothing fussy. I use a lot of crackle ware, so the pieces sort of have an aged look already to them.
Where can people find your stuff if they want to?
Well, you can find my stuff. Right now, I do have a show of art pieces, not functional pieces, at the Lois Lambert Gallery, which is also called the Gallery of Functional Art at Bergamot Station. The show is going to be there until November 10th, and I would love to get people there because they're pieces that I took. I had so much fun making. And so for me, here they have an audience. Rather than sitting in my house or in my studio where nobody sees them, please, if you have a chance, get out to Bergamot, which is in Santa Monica or West LA.
I've been to that gallery. I actually saw a Shakespeare show in the gallery.
It's interesting you mentioned Shakespeare because sitting beside you is a piece of art I did for another show this fall, which was called Within. And I sort of wanted to have pieces within pieces. And in that case, you see that there's chicken wire going around a clay bottle. And then behind the chicken wire is another piece of chicken wire. And so I'm sort of working with paper and chicken wire. And that bottle is all about Shakespeare. There's a quote on the front. I don't know if you want to read it, Brett. But I was thinking of Don't Be a Pooh Head because it's sort of Shakespeare's version of Don't Be a Pooh Head. Which is, at the bottom it says, love all, trust a few, do wrong to none.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, the motto we should all live by.
Love that.
And so anyway, there's an old map I found of London at the time with the Globe Theatre there, I think in the 1600s. And there's a little portrait, a famous portrait of Shakespeare, which is framed right in the front. I don't know if you can see that. But for me, one of the great pleasures of my recent work is that not only can I bring in other materials, things I find in the park, just beautiful paper. I get invitations in the mail. I think, this is so beautiful. Let me cut it up and weave it into chicken wire. But I also get to use literature, words, quotes that I certainly find inspiration in. And it's, you think so many poems and quotes just sit in books and no one really sees them. So for me, it's an opportunity to share that. I put them on balls. You have a ball in front of you. I don't know if you want to read that.
Yeah, let me read this. Oh, and
there's a rattle inside it. I make those for people's weddings, too, and I will put the name of the two people inside it.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I call them spirit orbs.
Oh, wow. And this one says, to sit with a dog on a hillside on a glorious afternoon is to be back in Eden, where doing nothing was not boring. It was peace. And that's by Milan Kundera.
He wrote The Unbearable Lightness of Being.
Oh, yes.
The great Czech novelist.
So what's with you and chicken wire? Like, is it?
Chicken
is
wire,
it just easy to work with?
Well, it's interesting because chicken wire is actually quite difficult to work with. If you've ever tried to wrestle a big piece of chicken wire, it comes in big rolls. You can get them at the hardware store. I go up to Pacific Palisades to Norton's and I buy it by the foot. But the wonderful thing about it is that it is almost the opposite of clay, where clay is opaque, heavy, dense. Chicken wire is light, it's transparent, but it is incredibly strong. And I first started, I was doing some pieces for the Zimmer Children's Museum, which is a museum here in Los Angeles.
It's on Wilshire, correct?
It's on Wilshire, right, Museum Mile. And every year they had a show called Show and Tell. They started it maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and they invited me. In fact, it was really when I made that transition from functional pottery to art. I knew the person who was curating it, and she actually asked my husband, as an architect, to make something for the show. There were a lot of celebrities making pieces. There were many famous, very famous artists and politicians, and it was sort of a catch-all trying to get anybody who had a name that was recognizable to do something. At that point, I would say, did not have a name that was recognizable to anybody but my friends and family. But she she had always been a big supporter of my work, and she said, I know you usually do functional pieces, but is there any way you could maybe do an art piece for us? And I thought, actually, that would be fun. And I have to be honest, I think most ceramic art is pretty ugly. There's a lot of ugly art out there, period. But I still admire everybody's effort to do it. And everybody has a different idea of what's beautiful and what's not, which is fantastic. And sometimes pieces I make, I think, ooh, that really didn't come out well. And someone will walk into my studio, and that is the first piece they go to and the piece they want to buy. So
it's what speaks to you.
Yeah, it's amazing because you realize that everybody, I mean, it's true going to a play, reading a book, going to see an art exhibit, that everybody brings their own experience of life with them. Yeah. And so it means that every piece is different for everybody who sees it, who reads it, who watches it. And I mean, it's a beautiful thing. But anyway, back to the Zimmer show. So I did something at that was called Show and Tell, and everybody was given a phone. I got an old 40s Bakelite phone, and I had to somehow turn it into a work of art. So it's sort of hard to describe, but that's when I started making the balls.
Oh,
and because this was for a children's museum, I put dialogue from children's books, including Alice in Wonderland and some of the Wind in the Willows, probably some shows that you've done at Theater Palisades Youth. But I found wonderful
Mm-hmm.
dialogue that these kids in the books were speaking, and I thought of these balls as speech balloons. And I created a big box made of blocks from Teddy's wooden blocks and glass. I created a glass box that was sort of up over the telephone, and then I had the handset of the phone on top, so it opened the lid of the box, and the box contained all of these speech balloons, and I called it Chatterbox.
Oh.
And it happened that 1, 2, 3, 4, or 0 to 9 had the exact right number of letters for Chatterbox. So I put the letters of Chatterbox in the rotary dial of the phone. And anyway, it was so much fun to make. And it was the first piece that was sold by the gallery or by the Zimmer for that show. And so since then, I've been doing a piece every year for the show. And my work has been more and more about it was a tower I first made of chicken wire because I realized, I wanted to make this tower and have something suspended in it for the Zimmer Museum. And so I made a big tower. I don't know if you can see the one by Dorothy there, but a big, tall, skinny clay tower.
That's huge.
And I sliced the top off and then put an insert of chicken wire there, sort of make a little cage of chicken wire, which can be completely open. In the case of the one Dorothy has, I wove a map of Rome into it. I found this old map of Rome. I copied it. I didn't cut up an actual beautiful old map, but I sliced it and then wove the chicken wire into it. But sometimes I leave that chicken wire cage completely open and I suspend things inside it, like a magnifying glass or an image of something. Sometimes I put another little pot, a tiny little pot inside it.
You have one of those over on our table.
I don't know if I can wander over.
Or you've got one in the square.
Oh, exactly. Well, here's can anybody see?
Yeah, if you put it next to you.
Okay, here we go. I have I found at Michael's craft supply store these wonderful just shadow boxes, and then there is something which I sort of hesitate to share with everybody in the world because it's so beautiful. I want to hoard it and keep everything myself. But there's something called washi tape, which is Japanese. And it comes in a range of colors. And I went online and went sort of washi tape crazy, going to every website I could to order different colors of it. And I just wrapped this shadow box in the washi tape in different colors. And then I put a little pot with a hole, so the pot is actually suspended in the square of the shadow box for those who can't see it. But I was talking a little while ago too about poetry and pottery.
Mm-hmm.
And again, let me turn this around so people can sort of see. I made a box of clay and carved it, so it's striped. So this one is a yellow and white striped one. And then I'm a great fan of Garrison Keillor's The Writer's Almanac. You should, if you don't know it, go online right now and Google The Writer's Almanac. He also does. He does
Prairie
broadcasts.
Home
he does Prairie Home Companion.
I was just in
We're
Minneapolis.
talking with we're talking with artist Moye Thompson. If you have any questions for Moye, give us a call at 323. Eric Van Eric.
What's that number again, Van Eric?
It's 323-473-3100. That's 3100.
Yes.
The smooth sounds of Van Eric, yes.
So I was plugging Garrison Keillor,
Yes.
Who seems to love poetry. He does a daily podcast, I think, where he reads a poem. And so I subscribe. I get these daily podcasts, so I can see these poems. And every now and then there's one that I just love. And I think, I'll bring it into my work somehow. So can I read this one here? I have it just this is actually a mock-up. This is just paper here. Usually I make a cylinder of clay, and I have these stamps I got from a leather supply company where I actually stamp letters into the clay, these tiny little letters, and then I rub ink into them, and so you can actually read them. So this is a poem that is on a cylinder here in this box, so you can just turn it and read it. It is called Success Story by a poet named Terrence Winch, and he says, "My clothes are perfectly contoured to my body. My shoes and socks fit just right. My cat is a delightful, intelligent animal. My apartment is great. The right location, cheap rent. I eat the best food. My friends love me. I adore them. My lover is terrific and beautiful. The sun is shining. There are trees even in the slums of Washington. I have tons of money and a gorgeous air conditioner. Great art hangs on my wall. I live a spine-tingling life of delirious sex and intense happiness."
That's really cool.
I love this poem. Oh, and look, there's applause. Thank you. Thank you, Terrence Winch, for that.
And thank you so much for joining us, Moye.
Well, I loved being here.
Give people the information on your show one more time before we...
It is at Bergamot Station in Santa Monica at the Lois Lambert Gallery, which is the Gallery of Functional Art. You can also, I'm sort of ashamed to say, you can go online and find me at moyeceramics.com. But I'm one of these people who does not update her website that often. I had what is probably the oldest website online.
Okay.
Well, as long as people can find you,
They
that's what
find
matters.
me, and there's a new site coming soon,
right.
bookmarked there, so you can find me with contact information, and you can Google my name, and you can actually find plenty of work out there online. Not at my website, but in other websites.
Excellent,
Awesome.
excellent. And you'll keep in touch with us. Let us know when your other shows
Oh,
are coming. I know
would-
you always do a holiday show.
I
so-
usually do a holiday show, but I will certainly let you know, Dorothy. You
Great.
will not be able to escape me. And let me know about your shows,
Oh,
because
we
I
will.
definitely need to get to the theater more.
Absolutely.
Well, we're on the air every Saturday
And
at
I
noon.
will definitely go on the air every Saturday at noon.
Cool.
Wonderful. All
Moye
right.
Thompson.
Great. So we'll take a break.
Yeah, we'll take a break. Why don't we... Do you want to... Hi, Madison Hatter. This is weird. Do you want to sing us a song coming back from the commercial? Do you want to set up now and do that? Okay.
Cool.
Cool. We'll be back with Madison Hatter and Gary Melvin. If you have any questions for them, be sure to give us a call at
323-473-3100.
I'm just never going to say the phone number. I'm just going to let you do it every time.
It's much cooler that way.
Yeah, it is. He's got a way better radio voice than I do. We'll be back on La La Land with Brett and Dorothy on LA Talk Live. Where's my camera? There it is.
Baby, I'm wrong. Baby,